What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a new video. Today, we're going to be talking about risers and fallers in fantasy hockey. I'm pumped for this one. I got a special guest on today, Chris, better known as FP Charlton. How are you today?
Going on, Mike? Good to be here. I think this is a really good idea for a video. So shout out to you for coming up with this. It's just like a good opportunity to see like where people's value have dropped or risen in terms of like what we saw at the beginning of the season and where we kind of drafted. So I think it'll be like a good kind of like overview of some risers and fallers.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily a buy low, sell high, but to some degree it is. Some players I would say are going to hold their value and sustain it all season, where maybe some won't, and we'll get into that. All right, so the first riser we want to talk about today, William Nylander, Toronto Maple Leafs. I took him in 2 of my 4 drafts. You're a Leafs fan, so you've been seeing his play. 10 points in his first 12 games, 68-point pace, including 34 goals this season he's on pace for. Man, he's off to a good start. Shooting more. He's on the top power play unit, finally. He's playing with Matthews. Just so many positives around Nylander. And he was taken 8th round, ADP 97. What have you seen out of Willie this season?
So I actually saw a couple people in drafts kind of reach on him after his like great play in the playoffs last year against Montreal in that series. It was kind of surprising how early he went compared to like his previous kind of like ADP over the last couple of years. But it's definitely nice to see him back on the first power play unit. I know that was kind of like an issue with the Leafs towards the end of last season. That their power play was struggling for whatever reason, but moving Nylander to that kind of like Marner spot allows him to get more looks in terms of shots, and as well as it like obviously adds power play points, which is nice. But yeah, like you talked about how he's on pace for like 34 goals. Like this is a guy that's seen years where I'll reference 2019, 2020, where he had 31 goals in 68 games. So he's definitely can get up there. He's very well-rounded in that sense, and I think that the increase in time on ice, especially playing with Matthews, can only improve his fantasy value.
Yeah, and he looks like a completely new player in the offensive zone. He's really driving the offense to the net more than doing a little spin circle, whatever he does when he gets into the zone, and then holds up for a pass. But it seems like a new Willie Nylander this year. More minutes, more shots, and more points. And right now, I would say his value is around the 4th round. I took him in our keeper league, and I remember you texted me saying, "How did you know I want Willie?" So I stole him from you, but it's paying dividends for me. And we have 4 keepers in that league, and at some point, I'm going to have to make a decision whether or not I want to keep him. So Nylander's been a beast this season. Hopefully, some of you drafted him. He's definitely on the rise in terms of value, especially for next season. So yeah, Willie Nylander.
Oh, great player.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start off by introducing my riser, and it's partially because I have my Florida Panthers jersey on right now. And it's Sergei Bobrovsky. Now, Bob has been subpar, I'll say, over the past couple of years. He had a 900 save percentage the year before, and then last year he had a 906. And there was a lot of kind of like interesting debate and development over who was going to get the net this year for Florida, because Spencer Knight played really well in playoffs. Yeah. But if you follow our content, you know that I made a video about addressing kind of where I thought Bob and Spencer Knight were going to sit. And we knew that Bob was going to get the majority of the starts early on. Like when you have a guy of that caliber, even though he's had a couple
and
of
price tag,
exactly,
and price tag,
the $10.5 million. They say it doesn't impact the coach's decision whatsoever, but it definitely does. But Bob has been absolutely lights out this year. He leads the NHL in goals saved above expected. He's got a 6-0 record. Florida's got off to a great start. He's currently has like a 948 save percentage. So again, like I kind of talked about when Bob was struggling over the past few years, like Florida doesn't have the depth that they have now. Aaron Ekblad also made a huge jump, not only like offensively, but defensively, as well as Florida just seems like they're a force this year.
Yeah, they're so good. I just want to address the reason why I paused at the end of the William Nylander was because I did get a call in Discord and it showed a little bit. So for those who picked that up, I'm sure there'll be a comment or two saying it, but
the show goes on.
I got a little pause. I'm like, do I stop the video? But no, we'll keep going. But yeah, man, I see you're repping the Florida jersey. Definitely one of my favorite teams going into this season. And we've mentioned it before, like goalie success strains from the team's success. So if the team's bad in front of them, the goalie's going to be bad. If the team's good in front of them, the goalie's going to be good. And that's the case with Bobrovsky this season. I'm glad he's getting starts. I mean, like we said, $10.5 million. He should be starting. But yeah, he's been a beast this season. I would say he's making a case to be a top 5 goalie rest of season, assuming he comes back healthy and, continues his play from where we saw. But I can't really see Florida regressing to any degree.
No, they're so deep. They even like the defense this year. Like Mackenzie Weegar is a guy that I know you really like. Who's just been fantastic for just like in that top 4. It looks a lot better than the past couple of years, and obviously like Bob is playing really well as well, so that helps.
Yeah, and Russia has some difficult decisions to make for the Olympics. They have Shesterkin, Vasilevsky, and Bobrovsky to decide between. I remember in the past they struggled to find a goaltender, so we'll see what happens there. All right, so jumping over next riser. Speaking of Russia, Vladimir Tarasenko, man, he's been good this season. A lot of question marks. He was definitely a wild card going into this year. 2 shoulder surgeries. 2 shoulder surgeries. It's a tongue twister. The hardest thing to say.
There we go.
2 surgeries. He played 34 games in his last 2 years. No one really knew if he was going to get back to form, but I do remember in a stream that I had, someone mentioned that he's looked really good in training camp. I saw some tweets about it. I feel like they always say people look good in training camps. That's kind of the vibe I've gotten from the last couple of seasons, but it's paid off. 5 260-plus shot seasons, 5 30-goal seasons in a row. He was a beast early in his career.
Yeah, I think if you need a guy to target that's going to get you goals and going to get you shots, even chipping on like the power play, it's definitely somebody like Tarasenko. Like his shot volume is insane. He could be like a 40, 50 goal scorer, no problem. He started out on the third line and then he really impressed. Because they originally brought in like Buchnevich in that trade to kind of play in that top 6 role, because there was like a bunch of trade rumors, if you remember, about like Tarasenko potentially being out the door due to like injury concerns, kind of similar to with what Eichel was dealing with in Buffalo. But yeah, he's looked absolutely fantastic. He's on fire right now. He's poised for like I said, like 40 to 50 goal season easily if he keeps up this pace that he's at. Yeah,
it's definitely doable. His time on ice is trending upwards as well. He's averaging 1651 right now, last 4 games, 19, 19, 17, 18. So he's playing more. His shot volume's at the highest of his career, 13.5 shots per 60. The second highest of his career, 12 per 60. So he's been a beast. He's shooting the puck nonstop, getting the power play time, getting the minutes. He's someone I'm happy I took in one of my drafts. Definitely playing dividends. He was a 10th round ADP. Probably say he's up near the 5th round right now, which is where I remember him in 2019 or 2018, his last season. I remember he was about a 5th round pick. So Tarasenko, definitely a riser this season. Definitely someone that you drafted and you're happy you drafted and you're not really looking to move him. Alrighty, so jump over to our followers. I'll let you start off with the first follower you have.
Yeah, speaking of guys that had really good season, Roope Hintz, 43 points in 41 games last year. He's kind of just really had a tough start in Dallas. I'll look into the number, or I'll touch on the numbers a little bit, but his minutes are down right now almost by 2 minutes total, but he's still getting that kind of like second line with him, Jason Robertson, who just came back off of injury, and Joe Pavelski. So he only has 2 points in 11 games currently, which is shocking because he was over a point per game last year at that pace. But some good news is that his shots per 60 rate is actually much higher. Well, not much higher. It's up by 2.3, which is significant when you're looking at a per 60 rate. But Dallas, like this year, their goal percentage is I think it's right at 40%, and their expected goals is 50.7 or 7.9 at the time of this video. So there's a little discrepancy there. I definitely think that Jason Robertson coming back into the lineup will also help Hintz's game. And if you guys did catch it, the buy low video short should have been out already, and you would have seen my analysis on Hintz as being a buy low. I definitely don't see these, at least this struggle of the point pace that he's at right now, continuing. And honestly, like the most shocking stat to me was like individual expected goals for Hintz last year was at 27.1. He's now sitting at 7.5. which is a ridiculous drop in that area. So definitely keep your eye on him. He's kind of fallen off a cliff in terms of his production based off of last season. But I think Jason Robertson should help spark things for him going forward.
Yeah, and the first one that comes to mind for me with Hintz is a name I've heard a few times from last year, day-to-day Hintz. I remember near the later half of last season, every night he was day-to-day, game time decision, day-to-day, day-to-day. And I think if you go look at his daily face-off, I think there's like a log that tracks like his status updates. If you go through it, it's the same thing. It's day-to-day, game time decision. He will play, he will not play. He was on ice for warm-ups. It's so funny to see. But I didn't have him in many leagues last year, but he did have a really strong season. He was actually one of the more obvious sleepers, I would say. I would say each year has sort of a list of obvious sleepers. He was definitely one of them.
Yep.
But 43 points in 41 games, I would say an obvious sleeper paid off. But yeah, not a good season this year. Dallas' offense is struggling. Hopefully they find their game again. Hopefully Hintz finds his game again.
Yeah, it's tough, especially because like in drafts, you probably saw him go a lot higher than what he's valued at right now, just based off of last season. And with Tyler Seguin coming back, like we thought that, okay, like will Hintz move to wing because that's happened in the past before, how that will kind of impact the lineup and his minutes. So just like I said, something to keep an eye on going forward with Hintz.
Definitely. All right, jumping over to the next faller, someone that you probably have no surprise I'm talking about here, and you probably see his face in the thumbnail, Jakob Chychrun. Man, what a disaster season. I wasn't on him at all this season. I'm not trying to say that I was right, but in my analysis of Chychrun, I thought that Arizona was just a really bad team. They traded all their assets away. They were just left with him, Schmaltz, and Keller, if you want to consider Keller and Schmaltz assets. He broke out last season big time, 355 shot attempts last season in just 56 games, like unheard of numbers. 8.1 shots per 60, he scored 18 goals as a defenseman. Like Chychrun was a beast last year, and I know you kept him in your league. So how are you feeling right now?
Obviously, like the drop off a cliff in terms of production definitely hurts, especially in a keeper league when you see a guy like 2019, 2020, he had 12 goals in 63 games. Last year, he had 18 goals in 56 games. So you're thinking like, okay, like this guy's the real deal at that point. Even with like his shot totals going up and his peripherals are good too. Like his blocks are up there in terms of rate per game and stuff like that. So the production thing is just like you said, like he doesn't have anybody to play with in Arizona. It's Clayton Keller and maybe I'd even say Phil Kessel.
Yeah, Phil the Thrill, baby.
I wouldn't even consider Schmaltz being like a real offensive threat or anything like that. So again, like it's tough with the production. If you guys haven't already, go check out my short on what to do with Chychrun, because that kind of outlines, okay, like 100%, like if you're in a plus minus league, like you drop him outright.
Yeah.
Like there's really nothing you can do. He's gonna lose you that category every week. He's minus 20. I don't know what he's projected to be. He's gonna win the Masters at this point.
Yeah,
but I think
projected minus 136 this year.
That's crazy.
82 game pace, minus 136. There's a game tonight against Dallas. The time of the recording could be even worse.
Yeah, so Hintz is going to get a hat trick tonight, and Chychrun's just going to be like -5. So
yeah, most likely.
But yeah, like it's tough with the production. If you can keep them on your bench and hold them, because again, like there's still a lot of games left.
Yep.
It could just be like a really, really tough start, but it's like looking at Arizona, like they're a borderline AHL team, so I really don't see the production getting any better for Chychrun.
I would say they have almost more AHL players than NHL players at this point.
I would agree with you.
Yeah. So one little note I have here, he went from one of the more prized defensemen in the draft to a waiver player in 3 weeks. So for those in keeper leagues, I mean, you can probably keep him. The issue is he won't really be relevant until they get help. So Chychrun, 8th round value, definitely a faller. Definitely a faller. I would say he's around the 14th round right now. In some leagues, he's a drop.
Yeah.
So
it's tough.
It is tough. Yeah. So last faller, Clarky, who do you got?
My last faller is somebody that was kind of in a very similar position that Chychrun is. It's Jeff Petry from the Montreal Canadiens. After, again, having Norris Trophy votes last year, being absolutely unbelievable offensively. He had 12 goals in 55 games and 42 total points. He's, again, similar to Chychrun, just kind of like fallen off a cliff in terms of production. He's seen a time on ice increase. Funny enough, he's well over increased by 2 minutes now compared to last season. And his shots per 60 rate went down from 6.1 to 2.8, which is a huge drop. But with 2 points in 14 games played, you have to wonder like how he's 33, right? So it's not like age is really on his side, and especially losing a guy like Shea Weber to kind of eat those tough minutes. Petry's going against like the tough opposition now. Like he's kind of their go-to guy now, especially with like injuries occurring sporadically with that defense core as well. I think you said Sherrod was out right now.
No, Edmondson's out. So no Edmondson, no Weber this year. Yeah.
Those are, and again, like if you looked at how Montreal was built last year, like that top four played a bunch of minutes, right? And so when you lose a guy like Weber and Edmondson's out, for example, and your team is just struggling to win games altogether, and not to mention the fact there's no Carey Price to kind of back you up.
Yeah.
You're kind of just playing defense a lot of the time, and the fact that his shot rate down is the biggest thing that scares me, because if it was kind of the same thing with Chychrun, where he's kind of getting those peripherals here and there, and nothing too crazy in terms of offense, but the fact that his shot rate is dropped so significantly is like my biggest red flag.
Yeah, and I think with Petry last season, his shooting percentage was almost 10%, but his career is 7%, so it wasn't too far off. So it was kind of hard to predict this much regression from him. Will he keep regressing? The answer is I would say probably not. I mean, he's getting the minutes. I think Montreal will figure it out eventually. But yeah, he's been struggling this year. He was someone I was calling on last season, especially to be a sell high. And I did end up trading him for John Tavares in one of my leagues, which ended up, I didn't win the league. I came second, but that was actually sent to me as well. I didn't even offer the trade. But yeah, it was a pretty big sell high last year. I mean, his point rate was absolutely crazy. He was at 2 points per 60. His career high prior to that was 1.4. So, nearly a 50% increase in points last season. Just super unsustainable for him. This season has been a really big surprise. His peripherals are still decent, but not as good as you want them to be a rosterable. Is that a word? Rosterable defenseman?
Yeah.
But luckily I don't own him in any leagues. I'm not sure if you do, but Jeff Petry, man, he was 8th round pick, ninth round pick, ADP 100, and he has fallen considerably to, I wouldn't say a drop candidate yet, but he's definitely making a case to be in some leagues.
Yeah, again, similar to Chychrun, like you can't really do much about the production, but again, like I said, like the shot rate you're fine. The shot rate kind of scares me. And the fact that he's getting more minutes too, like that just shows you like how hemmed in Montreal is at times, or at least when Petry's on the ice. I know they have been improving as of late. Like you've seen like Suzuki start to get his production going as well. So hopefully like Petry's able to kind of turn that around and get back to, because he was a regular like 40-point guy prior to last season.
Yeah, a few seasons
where he had like 42 points in 82 games, 46 in 82.
Yeah, 5 in a row it looks like.
Yeah, and then he ended up with 42 in 55 games. So hopefully if you own him in fantasy leagues, he can kind of get his production going again. And then if you want to move on from him, you can definitely make a trade. But he's kind of just stuck in the mud right now.
I agree. All right, guys. So that concludes the video. To remind you of who the players were, our risers: Willie Nylander, Sergei Bobrovsky, Vladimir Tarasenko; fallers: Roope Hintz, Jakob Chychrun, and Jeff Petry. So hopefully you guys own some of them in your leagues, especially the risers. Hopefully you don't own some of the fallers. If you guys like this sort of video, let me know in the comment section below. Also, let us know your risers and fallers, maybe players that have produced very well for you so far the early parts of the fantasy season, or players that have really been hurting your team / drafted them early and had to drop them. So definitely let us know. Clarky, any final thoughts?
Yeah, again, like if you guys have anybody in depth that you think would be beneficial to kind of go into from a fantasy standpoint, definitely leave their name in the comment down below, and we can take a look. I think this video gives us an opportunity to kind of like I said, go a little bit more in depth with certain players and stuff. So thanks for having me on, Mike, especially, and look forward to doing this again, hopefully.
I agree. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're not subscribed yet. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Take care, everybody.
See you guys.